The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is in China on his first visit since taking office. It comes as Western allies crank up pressure on Beijing over claims of unfair competition. Berlin, however, is looking to boost trade ties and remains committed to doing business with the world's second largest economy. Now, Scholz is accompanied by a large business delegation of Germany's biggest companies, including representatives from Siemens, Bayer, Volkswagen and Mercedes-Benz. It also includes Germany's environment, agriculture and transport ministers. More than 5,000 German companies operate in China, which has been its largest trading partner for the last 8 years. The trade volume between the two economies reached $270 billion in 2023. But trade has fallen in the last year, around 8.7%, since Berlin launched its first China strategy. That's as German businesses complained of unfair competition from local firms which benefit from subsidies and better market access. The strategy recommends that companies diversify their supply sources and customer bases amid rising geopolitical risks.
The relationship between China and Germany is very strong over the many years. It's an industrial relationship. Remember that 30% of the industrial GDP comes from China. Germany has a lot of technology to offer, so this is how we grow our economies. And going forward, I think we have the next level ahead of us, deploying the new productive forces in a higher level, a new way of collaboration. That's what we're looking for.
Let's get more on this now with Klaus Vistesen in London. He's Chief Eurozone Economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics. Really good to have you back with us, Klaus. This is a really significant visit because, as we know, Germany climbed up earlier this year to become the world's third largest economy. China obviously is ahead of it, being the second largest economy. Explain to us the significance of Scholz's visit to China.
I think it's always important, as you imply, when officials from two large economies like this meet. There's a lot of money being thrown around, potentially trade deals or deals that have economic significance. But I also think because of the relationship at the moment between the West and China, there's a lot of attention on this. I mean, there's a more tense relationship, both in terms of trade, but also in terms of overall geopolitics, right? And Europe and Germany is trying to sort of tiptoe a balancing act between China and the US here. So that's why I think there's a lot of attention on sort of the general sort of feel for the meeting, what they're talking about, what is the sort of the general sort of mood that comes out of this meeting.
Well, you mentioned the United States because, as we know, the Biden administration is looking to really punish China on a number of fronts economically. For example, it's wanting to force TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, to sell its US assets. It's also looking to really take the edge away from China in terms of the growing competition with regards to computer chips. Explain to us how Germany is looking to toe that line between supporting its Western ally in the United States, but also continuing to do business with China.
Well, that's very difficult for Germany. I think that the U.S. is going ahead with, as you imply, with brute force. I think Germany and Europe in general is a little bit more hesitant to that kind of line against China. But in a way, they kind of have to toe the line in a way. I mean, for Germany and Europe, especially the auto market is important. Europe and Germany feels that China is unfairly dumping some products potentially dumping some products on the European market. So certainly there, I think Europe and Germany would probably be more inclined to take a harder stance. But in general, yes, Europe and Germany here in this context is basically trying to balance things out, right, a little bit, and try to smooth things over a little bit if they can. But again, it's very difficult because there are conflicting objectives here.
Well, that's right. I mentioned some of the companies that are on this delegation to China, including the conglomerate Siemens and the massive German automaker Volkswagen. We know China is looking to develop, or even has developed, competitive sectors in both those industries. How can German companies work with Chinese company in that regard and also, I guess, increase its market share in the Chinese market?
It's a good question. I mean, in a way, so the idea that China is now selling relatively cheap electric vehicles, particularly in the European market, and in that segment is outcompeting domestic producers in Europe, that's already a fact. I mean, that's happening. And this is happening because China has been subsidizing the production of electric vehicles, and Europe has been subsidizing the consumption of electric vehicles, and therefore Europe has been sucking in a lot of relatively cheap product here. So I think maybe what Germany and in particular the companies you mentioned are looking for is, of course, to become a supplier to China for the production of these vehicles. But also, I think it's in all the big companies in Germany's interest to have a more level playing field. I mean, I noticed that Scholz was speaking at the university in China. He was talking about, respect for property rights, respect for trade rules. These are the kind of things that they will try to press on China at the same time as obviously looking for business opportunities. China is a massive market for industrials in Germany and will remain so for a long time.
Okay, Klaus Wissers, and we'll leave it there for now. Thanks as always for joining us on the program.